Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to a breaking news edition of the Chris Cuomo Project. You have producer, the one and only Greg Ott, and me both coming in on a Sunday for this news that President Joe Biden has decided to step out of the race. This is a surprise, so much so that I left a family wedding and raced back here to be in position to do special coverage tonight. And I've been making phone calls. In fact, it's a little weird for me to be using my phone to do this, and I can't check my texts right now. But let me tell you what I know, and then Greg and I will get into a conversation. The headline for me is failing to plan is planning to fail. That is the epitaph for the Democrats if they screw this up even more than they have already. Remember, the decision, the fatal flaw was not having a primary system. Not a real one, and pretending that this was just any other incumbency. Biden was not any other incumbent. The proposition in beating Trump is that he is too scary. The offset of that notion is if the Democratic ticket also frightens people, not because it's radical left. That's for the right to say. That's their propaganda. It's that Biden may not serve it out. So you're really voting for someone else, or it's not going to be him. And that uncertainty, that fear is a fear. It's a scary, it's an offset. So that's what they were wrestling with. Why today? Biden, I think, has been beaten by COVID. He's been beaten by consensus. He's been overwhelmed with calls. But I'll tell you something. His people were making calls to delegates today and reaching out in different states to see where people's heads and hearts were when they found out that he was going to withdraw. Meaning, that's how sudden it was. That's how capricious it was. That's how much Joe Biden didn't want to do this. And what did we see in response? So he puts out the letter, no mention of Harris endorsement. Then a tweet endorsing Harris. Why? Because the Democrats are begging him for time and to be part of the process. That's what I'll talk to you later this week means. And you saw the Clintons, maybe the Obamas, Pelosi, everybody came out and said, yay, Harris. Why Kamala Harris? First of all, why not? And I'm not playing semantics. If you're a Democrat, how do you pass over a sitting vice president who's a black female? How do you do it? For what, a white guy? Your party has made a big point of saying that it celebrates diversity. How do you do that? Second, how do you do it when the money in the Biden-Harris, which is now the Harris question mark, committee, that 200, 300 million, whatever it is, she's the only one qualified to take it from President Biden. Otherwise, that committee would be subject to campaign finance rules at the federal level like anybody else. And that money would be largely stuck and have to be returned. So you talk about the political exigencies and the financial exigencies. It is not easy for the Democrats to look past Kamala Harris. Why am I even suggesting it? Well, one, because they don't have a plan. And two, there is a movement within the party that wanted to get rid of Biden, but also wants to get rid of Harris because neither is seen as progressive enough. So what might we see at this convention? That's the big question mark. The answer to the now what is, we don't really know until the convention. What kind of people will have the balls to get in against Harris, meaning the entire infrastructure of the Democratic Party? Could a Bobby Kennedy consider it? Well, how could he do that? He's an independent. You only need 300 delegates to sign your name for consideration at the convention. 300, you got over 3,000, 4,000 delegates with the super delegates. That's not that many. That's just like 10% if you could get them. Marianne Williamson, Cornel West, Jill Stein, Josh Shapiro, Bashir. Now, those guys, the legit players, less likely. Why? Going against the party machinery. But there are now a bunch of questions that have to be answered on this news. This is not the end of the story. It's just the beginning.
So, Chris, we had this Kevin O'Leary interview that I was actually working on in Bryant Park when this news broke. You talked a lot about, you thought Biden and Harris would stay in. People will see this interview later this week. There's another thing we worked on, and things you mentioned recently, where you have thought that Biden and Harris would be the ticket. How surprised are you, A, that he ended up making this decision, which appears to just have been this afternoon, and B, that this is ultimately like what he wants to do? Like, how surprised are you in all this?
He doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to do it. He's being forced to do it. That's why they're all fawning all over him, is because they don't want to look like they pushed out an old man. Guess what? They just pushed out an old man. And they did it because they fucked up the primary process. And they really did. That is the unforgivable thing. So many Democrats have said to me, how did we get here? Look, we all knew Biden was old, okay? And I think that we are exaggerating what is necessary for a president, okay? I don't think he's brain dead. I don't think he's going to resign. I know Republicans are now calling on him to resign. Why? More chaos, but they better be careful what they ask for, because Trump is very beatable. Now, some will say, no, not after taking a bullet for democracy. Not now he isn't. Not after that assassination attempt, which is why you have wackadoos on the left saying he wasn't shot. Makes them no better than what they say they oppose in the righty fringe that believes all their conspiracy bullshit. But Trump is very beatable. You have less than 4 in 10 people in this country thinks you can believe anything he says. That's not good. So they better be careful what they ask for. Why would Biden resign? What Biden should do is stay in and become immensely useful in bridging us for the next several months and talking about unity and bringing in people from both sides of the electeds and saying, hey, man, you guys got to do better than this. And what will it look like? What will he sound like? I don't know. We've never been here before. 1968, LBJ dropped out in March, and you had all of this social cataclysm going on about the war and other stuff. It's not really a great analogy, and I don't think it's even a great convention analogy. This convention is going to be a moment. I will almost certainly be in Chicago. But I have a list of questions, and I can go one by one, and you can tell me what you think, Greg, about each. The first one is that I'll make it what you just said. Shocker. Is it a shocker? Yes. Why? Because they have no plan. Failing to plan is planning to fail, especially in politics. I'm going to keep saying that because I'm telling you, it's going to loom large as a reckoning of this one way or another. Even if they win, it's going to be seen that way, because how could you have lost to Trump in the first place? You know, as unpopular, as frightening as he is to so many people. So is this a shocker? The first question, like, why did it happen this way, is the first question. Because they don't have any plan. And this has just been a pressure campaign, and they haven't seen past getting rid of Biden and just giving it to Harris.
If there was an attempt to challenge Biden, there was Dean Phillips back in the day. Everybody kind of laughed the guy off, but what he was saying from the get-go, if I remember correctly, was basically what everybody is saying now. It's like, we like Joe Biden. We think he's done a good job. He's just too old. Like, I have these concerns about his able to. So he was expressing these concerns, and it's a lot of what the party has been saying recently, as far as I remember.
Everybody felt it. The first problem was you can't go against your guy. So Dean Phillips broke that rule, which is why he was, you're only going to see that in a second-tier player or somebody who doesn't really want a future in the party. Right. And I'm not disparaging Dean Phillips. I had him on plenty because I believed he deserved the voice. Same thing I feel about Bobby Kennedy Jr. I don't think you can let the two parties just decide who gets a voice in our democracy, because it's not like they know better than the rest of us. I mean, Trump and Biden, that's the best they could do. That just shows you, to me, the limitations of that binary system and the battle to the bottom that it's become. It really is about which is worse when you have Trump versus Biden. So now what? Second question. The now what for the Democrats is, how do you look past Biden? How do you look past Harris? There may be pressure in the party to go more progressive than a black female. One who was an attorney general, who did a lot of things that minority communities weren't a fan of. There are progressives, especially more aggressive progressives, who want to do it differently and don't like her or Biden. How much of a say will they have? I don't know. It's tough to say right now. Why? That takes us to question number 3.
Well, what's interesting about that, Chris, really quick, is you had AOC do this Instagram Live the other day where she went to the mat for Biden and was like, he's our guy, blah, blah, blah. Like, of all the progressives,
Why do you think she did it?
Uh, to show party unity, because I think she's a pretty pragmatic politician. I don't think that she is like, for all the like, firebrand stuff she does, I think she actually does want to be a presence in the party. And so like I think at this critical juncture, she looks at the same polls that a lot of people see, and it's like, this is a huge gamble. This is a huge dice roll. And I think she was kind of like, Biden has actually done a lot of progressive stuff. I think she's become a more practical, pragmatic politician through the virtue of all the headbutting that the progressives have done. And so I think she likes Biden because he's been a good means to an end for the types of policies that she's been pursuing.
She will wind up saying something else now. There is no interest, well, not just about Biden, but about where she is and why. And here's the shift. There's no interest in politics like self-interest. She came out in favor of Biden because she was pleasing Pelosi, who was trying to have it both ways. Pelosi put her on committees, gave her sweet assignments, and that was a fealty play, my opinion. Now she's going to be saying something else, and we'll get a read on her. I think the less AOC, the better for the Democrats' chance of winning this election. How do you get past Harris? Sitting VP, Black female, institutional knowledge, access to the funds, comes from California, huge, was a U.S. senator, was an attorney general. It's a pretty solid pedigree for them to pass up with somebody who would want to have to piss off the party. So now Harris can pick her VP, right? No, not really. She can endorse someone, but nothing's happening between now and the convention officially. They got to have the roll call vote, because remember this, they can call it a mini primary, but it's not a primary. They passed that up already. It's going to all happen at the convention. Now, does that mean that the convention is going to be this wild? Well, that's what I want you to think, because if I'm there, I'm going to want you to watch it. But maybe more likely than not, it will be much more exciting than the, conventions that we've seen recently. But there is more than enough time. This next word. Is it too late? No, it is not too late. It is not too late for Democrats. Why? Look at what I'm doing right now. There's so much media. There's so much saturation within the political game that the cycles are never ending. In 1984, I was old enough to have lived through it. Yeah, I was a kid. I was 13 years old. But the Ronald Reagan thing was a whispering campaign. Joe Biden's health has been blasted all over the place for a year. Okay? The speculation is 24/7. Everybody has their own soapbox. So there's more than enough time. It's much easier for Harris because of the money, and I would argue for some other points also. Now, is there enough time? Yeah, but how do they use that time? See, that's the question. You'll hear people say it's too late, or isn't it? It's about how you use the time. And the first thing I need to know that I don't know right now is, what do we know about Harris's strength and weakness within the electorate? Just seeing her against another bunch of Democrat names, or as in anyone but Trump, that doesn't really tell me enough. I need to know what her plus minus is with different groups of voters.
Can I answer this? What do you think of this like blitz primary stuff that keep pitching? The idea of like between now and the convention actually running this mini primary. Semaphore tweeted out that thing that was like, I think a bunch of donors put together this like wish list of like, we get Mr. Beast and Taylor Swift and Oprah to host all these events. And like, to your point about like using the media, like there's this whole idea of like, it's not just, at the roll call, it's this huge televised live streamed event over the next month.
Style over substance. They have enough time. How they use the time. The faster they get behind somebody and start promoting her as better than Trump, with some kind of rationale for that, takes me to my fourth question. It's not just who, it's why. It's why. Now, you got a little bit of a how question too, but Biden getting out relieved a big part of the how question. Now you have the why question. Well, he was too old. That's what you say. Well, he couldn't win. That's what you say. Yeah, but look at the latest poll in Michigan. Yeah, I know, but we're a long way out, and polls are often wrong, and we don't know what's going to happen. And so, well, okay, that's how the Democrats are right now. Okay, so Can you please tell him, Mr. President, you're going to talk to him later in the week? Okay, because that's not weird, right? The guy decides to do this on a Sunday and doesn't come out and tell us. He says he'll tell us later, and then just happens to tweet out that he's backing Harris. This is fakakta, as they would say in Yiddish. This is a really screwed up process. But here's the big point of question number 4. Why is Kamala Harris better for you? Remember, the conceit, the theory of the case is Trump is volatile, self-obsessed, and dangerous. That's the Democrat pitch. Now, look, I don't really agree with the last part. I don't believe that Donald Trump has designs on being a despot, wants to destroy the democracy, wants to become an authoritarian. I don't believe it. And even if I did think, all right, maybe he wouldn't turn it down, he'd like to be king, I don't think he has the vision. I don't think he has the sense of strategy or tactics beyond his ability to make headlines to do something like that. You may not like despots, and you probably shouldn't, but they are very often impressive individuals in terms of their understanding of history, what their strategy is, what their design is. They may be completely malignant, completely evil, but this is working towards making that happen. I don't see that with Trump. And I'll get criticized for that, and people on the left will say I'm being foolish. Maybe. I'm sure I'll be high on the list of people who pay a price for a next Trump term. But I'm willing to pay that price to do the job. And I'll do it no matter who president is. But why, Harris? Why? What are you for? Not just Trump is scary. Because then you're banking 100% on the anti-Trump vote and that you are young and healthy. So I'll go with you. Now, I don't know that that's enough, because there were a lot of people who were worried about Biden because they didn't like the proposition of it being Harris if Biden couldn't do it, because otherwise you wouldn't have this problem, right? So if Harris was such a no-brainer, you could have kept the ticket the way it is. If the polls had been different, been like, I'm all right if it's not Biden because we got Harris. If that's the way people felt, the polls probably wouldn't be the way they are right now. That's my theory. So what's your why? Is it just that Trump is too scary and unhealthy? Okay, that's possible. Is it probable? I don't know, especially after the assassination attempt. So that takes me to question number 5, which is what to do right now. Slow down. Slow down. Why? Everybody's feeding you bullshit. And there's going to be all of this desperate incrementalism. Oh, I just heard from someone who had said that he heard Biden, and then I heard that it was Obama, and I heard that this was going to happen, and it really was settled a week ago. That's all bullshit, okay? And it's also irrelevant, okay? Sure, it'll drive clicks and SEO, whatever. Slow down. They didn't see this coming. They don't have a plan. The Republicans don't know how to respond. The more quiet they are, the better for them. Trump should not have come out and said Biden is the worst president ever. You are reinforcing for people why they don't like you, okay? So he's got to be in stop digging mode, right? He just survived an assassination attempt. This is about as good as things can be for Trump. The grace of God, okay. He is here. He's here to fight another day. People aren't going to like you any more than they do right this second. Stop digging. On the Democrat side, they don't know. Their presumption is to want Harris. They're lining up behind Harris, but they're cats. They don't have uniformity of the right because they're not motivated by fear the way the right is. You see J.D. Vance. How did he go from saying, be careful, Trump could be our next Hitler, to this? How do you think? Self-interest. Hits that ass. Hits that Trump ass.
I didn't know you were doing. For the audio listeners, Chris just made a gesture with his lips. Just to be perfectly clear, that was an ass-kissing gesture.
That is an ass smoocheroonie, because that's what politics is, self-interest. And all these guys, whether it's Cruz or DeSantis or Haley to a lesser extent, or J.D. Vance to a maximal event, Lindsey Graham, it's because I don't want to lose the primary. It's because I don't want to be Adam Kinzinger and be on CNN and having to talk to you through Twitter. I want to be in office. So you shut up and you kiss it. And with Trump, there's only one way. Trump's not a loyalty guy. He's a fealty guy. What's the difference? Loyalty is 2 ways. fealty is one way, you to me or I kill you. And that's Trump's way of doing business. We'll see how it works. I don't think it worked great the first time, especially with how so many people got burned by him. But point number 5 is slow down, because these are going to be big days and weeks between now and the convention. Will the convention absolutely be the spectacular thing where we don't know what's going to happen? Probably not. There's more than enough time to figure it out between now and then. And there will be some hijinks there, perhaps. I don't think they can shake Harris. I don't think they can do it. I don't think they can overlook her based on what they've said they want to be about and what the state of that party is.
Let me ask you 2 things. Team Alberta had that recent piece that came out in The Atlantic that profiled Chris LaCivita and all these, basically the Trump campaign, the behind the scenes, them anticipating this landslide win. It's a really good profile. If you haven't read it, check it out. But the writer, Team Alberta, just tweeted out, the Trump campaign has basically built this entire campaign of theirs that is going very well around this idea of like, this is how you beat Joe Biden. This old man, it's going to be strength versus infirmity and whatever, like strong versus weak. And Tim Alberta is basically saying like this entire campaign just has to go out the window now. Like, do you agree with that? Do you think that this is like completely reshuffling the deck?
No. And also, it's an interesting thing. Whether it's Tim Alberta, smart guy. Ezra Klein, smart guy. There's a difference between smart guys who have worked on campaigns and smart guys that haven't worked on that many campaigns and smart guys who've never worked on a campaign. And the idea that you just scrap it, it's not how it works. And there is no campaign. They don't have some kind of machinery of messaging. It's all Trump. And Trump just said Biden's the worst president ever. What's he going to say about Kamala Harris? Stupidest vice president ever. He's going to say something like that about her in short order. Okay. The only person worse than Biden is Harris. That's all he knows. He is a one-trick pony. Okay. He had an opportunity to do differently at that convention. And for 20 minutes, I thought I was going to come out of that speech and be talking to you guys about, wow, he could really change some minds. Not
you have
mine.
a whole video about that. That video like did very well. It was like you basically said all that, and he started like that, and then went back to Hannibal Lecter
and then
and shit.
all of a sudden, I believe he blew the moment. I really do. And look, again, how can you say that? You're making it sound like you wanted him to make the moment. I want better for us. I just want better. Yeah, I don't care if he's full of shit. A lot of them are full of shit. At least I'd rather have you be full of shit and saying the things I want to hear than saying things I don't want to hear and be full of shit. So we got a long way to go before the convention. And we got a really long way to go before the election. So slow down, because the Democrats don't know any more than we do.
With this is the last thing. Before Biden dropped out, a lot of the pod save bros and a lot of the pundits have been speculating that if Biden were to drop out, he would essentially be like George Washington. He is putting country above party. He is really making this valiant effort to step aside. Trump, in his estimation, is so dangerous. We need to win. What do you say about the actual choice Joe Biden just made? I know as you said up top, he probably didn't want to make this decision, but to actually say, hey, I'm not going to run for president anymore. That's a huge decision.
Do I think he had to do it? Yes, but for bad reason. I'm not sold that there was no chance that Biden could win. Not when people are this unpopular as Trump is. It's just a really hard thing to say this far out. And I don't know that Harris is such a shoo-in. The way certain Democrats are going to start talking now. And no matter whom else they pick to be with her, I think that that's an open question. And here's why he had to do it. Because the game sucks. And he's on a team, and the team has rules, and it's a club, and the club went bad on you. And he can't make the case to ignore the elites. He's as elite as you get. The irony to me is that who's more elite than the political parties? That's all they are, is opportunistic handling and finding inside ways and knowing who you know and how you get to where you are and what money you can provide. It's everything that we don't want in an egalitarian society is in these political parties. They are poison to any sense of populism. Obviously, we have a representative democracy, but they are destroying it. That's why George Washington, as Greg was discussing earlier, said, avoid the parties. Here we are. Did Biden have to do it? Yeah, because once your team goes bad on you, what are you left with? Unless you can bully them the way Trump did, Biden doesn't have that leverage. So here we are on a Sunday. He springs this, doesn't even discuss with us. Why? I think it's part COVID, part that he hates that he's doing this. And he says, I'll talk to you later this week. Okay. I don't know what he's going to tell us then, unless he resigns from office. But I don't know why he would do that unless there's a continuum of thought that I can't run again. I can't accept the nomination for the same reason I can't serve anymore. And what's the genius if he does that? And here, again, the Republicans better be careful what they're asking for. Who's president if Biden resigns? Who's president?
The vice president, Kamala
Harris. And you would give her several months of doing the job. So if I'm a Democrat, guess what I do? Later this week, Joe resign. Let Kamala get in there right now. Let her put people together. Let people see her putting together a team. Let her show how she speaks at the pulpit. And now he's running against the sitting president. And she ain't no Gerald Ford.
That's that would be quite the move.
Good.
I mean,
pretty good.
Crazier things have happened, especially this month. The season we're living through right now is pretty crazy. I don't want to keep you. I want to thank you for doing this. It's your show. I mean, I'm working for your show.
I want to thank Greg Ott. Greg Ott is a new daddy, as you know, who's with his family, and he abandons it and runs so that we could be here for you. And I respect you for it. But thank you for doing it.
I was at the Apple store. I was showing my wife a photo of my daughter, and she dropped it on the concrete, and I had to get a new phone. And in the middle of them, it's been taking forever to fix this goddamn thing. And as they're fixing it, this news breaks. But we're at a wedding. You're not wearing a suit, so I don't know what kind of a wedding it was, but
island shirt on. So look, we're here for you because this is the privilege that we have these days, is the ability to put out content and provoke conversation and give you food for thought. And that's what we're doing. I got a special on News Nation tonight. The show tomorrow will obviously be this, but what's the best thing for Kamala Harris? It's for Joe Biden to resign. Let's see if it happens. Let's get after it. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for following. Check me out on News Nation every weekday night. Tonight's a special, but 8 p and 11 p every weekday night. If you like this, but not the ads, go to the Substack and sign up. It's only $5 a month, no ads. You'll get stuff a little bit earlier than any other platform. And you get all the COVID stuff and the fitness and philosophy stuff that I'm using in my own life to try to get to a better place. I usually fail, but you don't have to. And what better time to remember that you have to be independent and get away from these parties and be a free agent, be a critical thinker. If you want to wear your independence, I've got the link for the free agent gear. Check it out. And if you have a question for me directly, find me on the Connect app. All right? The problems are real. The times are tumultuous. But the way through it is to stay together and to get after it.